The officer was concluding his shift when a tiny, trembling puppy ran onto the empty street, crying. It wasn't the tears or desperation in the pup's eyes that froze him, it was the shiny, unusual collar around its neck. What he discovered next left him speechless. The quiet streets of Maplewood were bathed in the golden glow of early morning sun. Officer Nathan Harper had just finished a long night shift and was looking forward to heading home. It had been an uneventful night, the kind he preferred. No emergencies, no disturbances, just the peaceful hum of a small-town routine. As he pulled his cruiser into the station parking lot, he noticed movement out of the corner of his eye. A small figure darted across the road, wobbling on tiny legs. Nathan squinted, adjusting his gaze to the source of motion. A puppy, barely a few months old, was running frantically, its cries cutting through the stillness of the morning. Nathan quickly stepped out of his car, instinctively crouching to the ground. "Hey there, little one," he said softly, his voice gentle to avoid scaring the trembling creature. The scruffy little thing with floppy ears and a golden coat stopped a few feet away, panting heavily as if it had run a long way. Its wide, tear-filled eyes met Nathan's, filled with desperation. "Where did you come from, buddy?" Nathan murmured, extending his hand slowly. The pup hesitated but eventually scampered forward, pressing its tiny body against his leg as if seeking comfort and protection. Nathan gently scooped it up, noticing how cold and fragile it felt in his arms. That's when he saw it, the collar. At first glance, it looked ordinary, a leather band with a shiny tag dangling from it. But as Nathan turned it over to read the inscription, his breath caught in his throat. The tag wasn't engraved with an address or phone number. Instead, it bore a single cryptic word in elegant script: help. Nathan's stomach churned. What did this mean? Who would put such a message on a collar, and more importantly, where had this puppy come from? The officer glanced around, his instincts on high alert. The street was deserted, and there were no signs of anyone nearby who might have been looking for the pup. As the puppy let out another soft whimper, Nathan felt a surge of determination. This wasn't just a stray dog, this was a cry for help, and he was going to find out why. Nathan carried the trembling puppy into the police station, its tiny body pressed firmly against his chest. The morning sun illuminated the building's faded brick facade, and the familiar scent of coffee and paperwork greeted him as he stepped inside. Officer Jenny Carter, Nathan's partner, was at her desk, sipping from a steaming mug. She looked up with a puzzled expression when she saw the puppy in his arms. "Starting a rescue shelter now, Harper," she teased, though her tone softened when she saw the concern on his face. "This little guy ran out to me crying," Nathan said, setting the puppy on the desk. The pup whimpered and curled into a tight ball, still visibly shaken. "But it's not just that. Look at this." He handed the collar to Jenny, who raised an eyebrow as she read the inscription, "Help." Jenny's playful demeanor faded instantly. "That's unusual," she said, her brow furrowing. "Are you sure he's not just lost?" Nathan shook his head. "No ID, no microchip, and no sign of anyone looking for him. And the way he ran up to me, it's like he knew I could help." Jenny reached out to pet the puppy, who flinched slightly but then leaned into her touch. "Poor thing," she murmured. He was terrified. Nathan sat down at his desk, setting the collar beside him as he booted up his computer. "I'm going to check local reports, missing dogs, break-ins, anything unusual. Someone might have left a message on the collar for a reason." While Nathan sifted through the database, Jenny prepared a small bowl of water and some scraps of chicken from her lunch, coaxing the puppy to eat. "You think this is connected to something bigger?" she asked. "I don't know," Nathan replied, his eyes scanning the screen. "But it feels off." As the minutes passed, Nathan's search came up empty. There were no reports of missing dogs matching the puppy's description and no incidents in the area that seemed related. Frustrated but undeterred, he decided to expand his search radius. Just as he was about to give up, Jenny spoke. "Hey, look at this," she said, holding up the collar. She had flipped it inside out, revealing a tiny, almost imperceptible stitching on the inner side. It wasn't just a decorative pattern, it was a series of letters and numbers carefully embroidered into the leather. "What is that?" Nathan asked, leaning closer. "It looks like coordinates," Jenny said, grabbing her phone to confirm. She typed the numbers into a mapping app, her eyes widening as the location popped up. "It's about 15 miles from here, an old cabin near Pinewood Forest." Nathan frowned. "That's a remote area. Not many people go out there, especially this time of year." Jenny nodded. "Do you think whoever left this message wanted someone to find the cabin?" Nathan glanced at the pup, who had finally relaxed enough to eat a few bites of chicken. It's possible. Either way, I don't think we can ignore this. An hour later, Nathan and Jenny were driving down a winding dirt road leading toward Pinewood Forest. The puppy, now nicknamed Scout by Jenny, sat on her lap, occasionally letting out a soft whine as if sensing the importance of their journey. The road grew narrower as they approached the coordinates, the towering pine trees casting long shadows over the path. Finally, they arrived at the location, a weathered cabin with a sagging roof and boarded-up windows. It looked abandoned, but there were faint signs of recent activity: tire tracks in the dirt, a broken branch near the entrance, and a faint glow coming from one of the windows. Nathan parked the car and turned to Jenny. "Stay with Scout. I'll check it out." Jenny started to protest but stopped when she saw the determined look in his eyes. "Be careful," she said. Nathan approached the cabin cautiously, his hand resting on the holster of his service weapon. He knocked on the door, but there was no response. The faint glow inside flickered, suggesting a candle or flashlight. Pushing the door open, Nathan stepped inside, his eyes adjusting to the dim light. The interior was sparse, an old table, a few chairs, and a pile of blankets in the corner, but what caught his attention was a small wooden box on the table. It was intricately carved, with a lock that had been recently broken. Inside the box were several photographs, each one showing a different dog. Some looked like strays, while others wore collars similar to Scout's. Beneath the photos was a handwritten note that sent a chill down Nathan's spine: "They're watching. Protect them." Nathan's mind raced. Who was they, and what did these dogs have in common? He grabbed the box and returned to the car, where Jenny was waiting anxiously. "What did you find?" she asked. Nathan placed the box on the dashboard, showing her the photos and the note. "Someone's been keeping records. These dogs, they're part of something bigger." Scout let out a sudden bark, startling them both. The puppy's wide eyes were fixed on the woods, his small body trembling once again. Jenny followed his gaze. "Do you think there's more out there?" Nathan tightened his grip on the steering wheel. "Only one way to find out." Nathan drove cautiously along the edge of Pinewood Forest, following the narrow dirt path that seemed to disappear into the trees. The discovery of the box and the cryptic note had left him with more questions than answers. Jenny sat beside him, holding Scout tightly as the puppy continued to whimper, his eyes darting toward the shadows outside the window. "This isn't just about stray dogs," Jenny said, breaking the tense silence. "Someone went through a lot of trouble to leave that collar and those coordinates. But why us? Why now?" Nathan didn't answer immediately. His focus was on the road ahead, but his mind was racing. The photographs, the note, the strange glow in the cabin, everything felt connected, yet he couldn't piece it together. "Maybe Scout was supposed to find someone, anyone," Nathan said finally. "And we just happened to be in the right place at the right time." Jenny glanced at the puppy, her expression softening. "Or the wrong place at the wrong time." They reached a clearing deeper in the forest, where the path widened slightly. Nathan parked the car and cut the engine. The sudden silence was almost deafening, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the occasional distant call of a bird. The air felt heavy, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. Nathan opened the glove compartment and pulled out a flashlight. "Stay here with Scout," he told Jenny. "I'll take a look around." Jenny hesitated but could see the determination in his eyes. "Be careful," she said again, her voice barely above a whisper. Nathan stepped out of the car, the flashlight's beam cutting through the darkness as he scanned the area. The ground was uneven, littered with fallen branches and patches of moss. His boots crunched softly against the dirt as he moved forward, his every sense on high alert. He didn't have to go far. Just beyond the clearing, he found something that made his blood run cold, a small cluster of shallow pits, each one filled with discarded collars. Some were old and rusted, while others were newer, the leather still supple. Nathan crouched down, picking up one of the collars. It was engraved with a single word: hope. "What the hell is going on here?" Nathan muttered to himself. Back at the car, Scout started barking, his tiny body trembling with renewed fear. Jenny tried to calm him, but his cries grew louder, more urgent. It wasn't until Nathan returned, his face pale and his hands gripping the collar tightly, that the puppy finally quieted down. "Collars," Nathan said, his voice low. "Dozens of them, all buried in pits just beyond the clearing." Jenny's eyes widened. Do you think someone's hurting these dogs?" "I don't know," Nathan admitted. "But whatever's happening, it's deliberate. These collars, someone's been collecting them, and they all have words engraved, just like Scout's." Jenny looked down at the puppy, who had pressed himself against her chest, his tiny tail tucked between his legs. What could this mean? Is it some kind of message? Nathan sat heavily in the driver's seat, running a hand through his hair. I don't know, but it's not safe here. We need to get back to the station and figure this out. The drive back to town was tense, the weight of their discovery hanging heavily in the air. Scout had finally fallen asleep, his small body curled up on Jenny's lap. Nathan kept his eyes on the road, but his mind was elsewhere. Who had left those collars, and why had they sent Scout to him? As they approached the edge of town, Nathan's radio crackled to life. Harper, this is dispatch. We've got a call you need to hear. Nathan picked up the receiver. Go ahead. There's been a report of suspicious activity near Pinewood Forest, the dispatcher said. A local hiker spotted someone loading what looked like animal cages into a van. They took off before we could get a plate number, but they were heading in your direction. Nathan's grip on the steering wheel tightened. Got it. We're on our way. Jenny looked at him, her expression a mix of fear and determination. This isn't a coincidence, is it? Nathan shook his head. Someone's trying to cover their tracks. They turned onto the main road, scanning the area for any sign of the van. Scout stirred in Jenny's lap, letting out a soft whine as if sensing the tension. Nathan's eyes darted back and forth, searching for anything out of place. There! Jenny exclaimed, pointing to a vehicle parked on the shoulder of the road. It was a white van, its back doors slightly ajar. Nathan pulled over a safe distance away and grabbed his flashlight and service weapon. Stay here, he told Jenny firmly. If anything happens, call for backup. Jenny nodded, her arms tightening protectively around Scout. Nathan approached the van cautiously, his flashlight illuminating the ground ahead. The area was eerily quiet, the only sound the faint rustling of leaves in the wind. As he got closer, he noticed the rear doors were hanging open, revealing several empty cages inside. A faint metallic smell lingered in the air, making his stomach churn. Police! Nathan called out, his voice firm. Is anyone here? There was no response, but as he rounded the side of the van, he noticed something that made his heart skip a beat, a trail of paw prints leading into the woods. They were small, too small to belong to anything but puppies. Nathan's jaw tightened. Whatever was happening, it wasn't over yet. Nathan followed the trail of paw prints into the woods, his flashlight cutting through the growing darkness. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth and pine, and every crunch of leaves under his boots seemed unnaturally loud in the silence. Behind him, the white van sat abandoned on the roadside, its open doors swaying slightly in the breeze. He crouched down to examine the prints more closely. They were fresh, heading deeper into the forest in a zigzagging pattern, as though the animals had been frightened and running aimlessly. But where had they gone, and why had someone left the van in such a hurry? Nathan's radio crackled softly, pulling him from his thoughts. Harper, you okay out there? Jenny's voice was laced with concern. I'm fine, Nathan replied, keeping his voice low. The van's empty, but there's a trail of paw prints leading into the woods. I'm going to follow it. There was a pause on the other end. Be careful. Whoever's behind this might still be out there. As Nathan moved deeper into the woods, the trail became more erratic. The paw prints were joined by larger boot prints, suggesting someone had been chasing the animals. The trees closed in around him, their gnarled branches forming a canopy that blocked out the fading daylight. The atmosphere was suffocating, every shadow and sound a potential threat. Then he heard it, a faint whimper. Nathan froze, his heart pounding. He scanned the area with his flashlight, the beam finally landing on a small, shivering shape huddled beneath a fallen log. It was another puppy, its fur matted and its eyes wide with fear. It looked up at Nathan, letting out a pitiful cry as it tried to crawl closer. Hey there, little one, Nathan murmured, crouching down and reaching out a hand. The puppy hesitated but eventually dragged itself forward, revealing an injured hind leg. Nathan's chest tightened at the sight. As he carefully picked up the puppy, he noticed something familiar around its neck, a collar identical to Scout's, with the same elegant engraving. This one bore the word safe. What is going on here? Nathan whispered, cradling the injured pup against his chest. The whimpering had drawn Nathan's attention, but now he realized it wasn't the only sound. Somewhere deeper in the woods, he could hear faint voices, muffled but growing louder. He quickly moved behind a tree, his hand instinctively resting on the grip of his weapon. The voices were coming closer, accompanied by the faint beam of a flashlight cutting through the trees. We need to move them faster, one voice said, low and urgent. I told you the van's gone, another voice replied, agitated. We have to get the rest of them before someone finds out. Nathan's stomach dropped. Whoever these people were, they were still actively involved in whatever operation was taking place here, and they were close, too close. The injured puppy in his arms let out a soft whimper, and Nathan quickly shushed it, pressing his back against the tree to remain hidden. The voices continued to approach, their tone growing more frustrated. "We shouldn't have left the collars," the first voice muttered. "It's going to lead them right to us." Nathan's mind raced. The collars, they weren't just random. They were part of some sort of system, a trail of breadcrumbs left behind either intentionally or as a desperate act of defiance. And now, whoever was behind this was trying to cover their tracks. The voices moved past him, heading in the direction of the van. Nathan took the opportunity to slip away, his steps careful and deliberate as he retreated deeper into the woods. He had to get the injured puppy back to the car, and fast. When he finally emerged from the forest, Jenny was waiting anxiously by the cruiser, Scout barking in her arms. Her eyes widened when she saw the second puppy cradled against Nathan's chest. "What happened?" she asked, rushing forward. "Found him under a log," Nathan said, his breath coming in short bursts. "And I heard voices, 2 people, probably the ones who abandoned the van. They're trying to move the rest of the dogs." Jenny's expression hardened. "We have to call for backup." Nathan nodded. "Do it, but first, we need to get this little guy to safety." As Jenny radioed for assistance, Nathan carefully examined the second puppy. Its leg was swollen and bruised, but it didn't appear to be broken. The collar around its neck intrigued him. The word "safe" seemed to contradict the dire circumstances in which the puppy had been found. "What do you think it means?" Jenny asked, glancing at the collar. Nathan shook his head. "I don't know, but it's starting to feel like someone's trying to send a message." Backup arrived within minutes, 2 additional patrol cars and an animal control unit. Nathan briefed the team on what he had discovered, sharing the location of the van and the voices he had heard in the woods. The officers quickly formed a plan to sweep the area, hoping to apprehend the suspects and rescue any remaining animals. Meanwhile, the animal control team took both puppies into their care, promising to treat their injuries and keep them safe. Scout whined as they carried the injured pup away, his little tail wagging anxiously. "Don't worry, buddy," Nathan said, giving Scout a reassuring pat. "We'll make sure they're okay." As the officers disappeared into the woods, Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. The collars, the cryptic words, the coordinated efforts to move the animals, everything pointed to a larger operation, one that extended far beyond the quiet town of Maplewood. He glanced at Jenny, who was watching Scout with a thoughtful expression. "You think whoever left those collars wanted us to find them?" she asked. Nathan nodded slowly. "I do. And I think whoever it was knew exactly what they were doing." Nathan stood near the patrol cars, watching as the officers disappeared into the forest to search for the suspects. His mind raced as he tried to piece together the fragments of this increasingly bizarre case. Beside him, Jenny crouched down to comfort Scout, who had been whining softly ever since the injured puppy was taken away. The sight tugged at Nathan's heart, but he knew there was no time to dwell on emotions. Answers were needed. "What now?" Jenny asked, her voice quiet but resolute. Nathan exhaled deeply. "We wait for the team to report back. But something tells me this goes deeper than just a few people in the woods. Those colors, hope and safe, they mean something. Someone wanted us to find these dogs, and I don't think it's the same people who are trying to move them." Jenny frowned, running her fingers through Scout's soft fur. "Do you think it could be a whistleblower, someone on the inside trying to expose what's happening?" "It's possible," Nathan admitted. "But if that's the case, they're playing a dangerous game. Whoever's behind this isn't messing around." The radio on Nathan's belt crackled to life, snapping him out of his thoughts. "Officer Harper, this is Delta Unit. We've apprehended 2 suspects near the abandoned van. No sign of additional dogs yet, but we're continuing the search." Nathan grabbed the receiver. "Understood. Secure the suspects and keep me updated." He turned to Jenny, his jaw tight. "They've got 2 of them. Hopefully, we'll get some answers." "Do you think they'll talk?" she asked, rising to her feet. Nathan shook his head. "People involved in things like this don't usually cooperate. But maybe they slipped up, left something behind at the van or the cabin." As they waited for more updates, Nathan decided to take another look at the note they had found in Scout's box. He unfolded the paper, studying the elegant handwriting once more. "They must be safe. Trust the dogs. They'll lead you to the truth." The words seemed almost poetic, But Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that there was a deeper meaning. Trust the dogs? What truth are we supposed to uncover? Do you still have the first collar? Jenny asked, glancing at him. Nathan nodded, pulling the collar engraved with hope out of his pocket. He laid it beside Scout's collar and the note, trying to see if there was any hidden connection between them. Jenny tilted her head, her brow furrowing. What if the words on the collars are clues, like a breadcrumb trail? Breadcrumbs leading to what, though? Nathan asked, his frustration evident. Jenny hesitated before speaking. Maybe not what but who. Whoever left these messages must have known the dogs would find someone who cared enough to follow the trail. Scout let out a small bark, startling both Nathan and Jenny. The puppy stood up on his tiny legs, his nose pointed toward the forest. He barked again, more insistently this time, as if he were trying to say something. Nathan's eyes narrowed. You think he knows something? Jenny shrugged, picking up the pup. Dogs have instincts we can't always explain. Maybe he remembers something, or someone. Nathan grabbed his flashlight and gestured toward the woods. Let's see where he leads us. Scout squirmed in Jenny's arms, barking excitedly as Nathan led the way into the forest. They followed a faint path that veered away from where the officers had gone. Scout's behavior grew more animated with each step. The deeper they went, the more the air seemed to change, thicker, quieter, almost as if the forest itself was holding its breath. After about 15 minutes of walking, they reached a small clearing. In the center stood a dilapidated shed, its wooden planks weathered and overgrown with ivy. The sight sent a shiver down Nathan's spine. This doesn't feel right, Jenny whispered, clutching Scout tightly. Nathan nodded, his hand resting on the holster of his weapon. Stay behind me. The shed's door creaked loudly as Nathan pushed it open, the sound echoing ominously in the still air. Inside, the room was dimly lit by a single dusty window, but it was enough to reveal the unsettling scene before them. The walls were lined with photos, images of dogs, some of them wearing collars with engraved words just like Scout's. Beneath the photos, shelves were stacked with files, each labeled with dates and names. A large corkboard dominated one corner of the room, covered in maps and notes connected by red string. Jenny stepped closer, her eyes wide as she took it all in. What is this? Nathan approached the corkboard, his flashlight illuminating the tangled web of information. The maps marked locations across the state, with handwritten notes scribbled in the margins. Extraction point, no interference, target secured, phase 2 underway, hope, safe, found. This is some kind of operation, Nathan said, his voice low. Whoever's behind this has been tracking these dogs for a long time. Scout barked sharply, drawing their attention to a metal box in the corner of the room. Nathan crouched down and opened it carefully, revealing a collection of collars. Each one was engraved with a different word: courage, strength, freedom. These aren't just dogs, Jenny said, her voice trembling. They are symbols. Someone's using them to send a message. Nathan's mind raced as he tried to make sense of it all. The collars, the notes, the photos, it was like a puzzle with too many missing pieces. But one thing was clear: whoever had orchestrated this was deeply committed to their cause, whatever it might be. The sound of a branch snapping outside the shed made both of them freeze. Nathan turned off his flashlight, signaling for Jenny to stay quiet. He drew his weapon, his heart pounding as footsteps approached the door. Who's there? Nathan called out, his voice firm. The door creaked open slowly, revealing a figure silhouetted against the moonlight. It was an older woman, her face lined with age but her eyes sharp and piercing. She stepped inside, her gaze landing on Scout. You found them, she said softly, her voice filled with both relief and urgency. You're the ones I've been waiting for. Nathan lowered his weapon slightly, his eyes narrowing as he studied the older woman. She appeared unarmed and unthreatening, but there was an undeniable intensity in her gaze. Scout, meanwhile, wagged his tail furiously, as though recognizing her. The woman knelt down, extending a hand toward the puppy, who immediately ran to her, nuzzling into her palm. You've been through a lot, haven't you, little one? She murmured, stroking Scout's head gently. Then she looked up at Nathan and Jenny. Thank you for finding him, and for following the signs. Nathan exchanged a glance with Jenny, who was still holding the other collar. You're going to have to explain what's going on, he said firmly. Who are you, and what do these collars mean? The woman straightened up, brushing dirt off her hands. My name is Evelyn Hayes. Well, I guess you could call me a guardian of sorts. She gestured to the photos and documents lining the shed walls. This isn't just a collection of random information. It's a record of the dogs we've saved and the people we've tried to stop. Jenny frowned, stepping closer to the board. Stop from doing what? Evelyn hesitated, her gaze dropping to Scout, who was now sitting quietly by her side. From exploiting these animals. There's a group, well-funded, organized, and ruthless, that's been using dogs for illegal experiments and trafficking. They see them as tools, not living creatures. My team has been working to rescue as many as we can, but we're running out of time. Nathan's grip tightened on his flashlight as the pieces of the puzzle began to fall into place. The collars, the cryptic notes, the abandoned van, it all pointed to something far bigger than he had anticipated. But one question still nagged at him: why the collars? Why not just take the dogs to a shelter or report this to the authorities? Evelyn's lips pressed into a thin line. We've tried that, but this group has connections everywhere, even in law enforcement. If we're not careful, the dogs we rescue end up right back in their hands. The collars are a way to communicate, to signal to those who are trustworthy, people like you. Jenny looked stunned. You're saying this operation is so deep that even the police can't be trusted? Not all of them, Evelyn said quickly. But enough to make it dangerous to involve anyone who isn't carefully vetted. That's why we leave the dogs with people we believe will act, people who care. Nathan's mind raced as he processed her words. It explained the collars, the notes, and even the way Scout had been left so strategically. But it also raised more questions, questions that Evelyn seemed reluctant to answer. And the dogs? He pressed. Why leave them out in the open like that? Why not contact us directly? Evelyn sighed, her shoulders sagging. Because they're the key to everything. Each one of them has been through something, seen something that could expose this operation. The collars are like breadcrumbs, leading us to the next step. But it's not just about saving them, it's about uncovering the truth. Jenny glanced at the photos on the wall, her expression a mix of awe and disbelief. You've been doing this for how long? Too long, Evelyn replied, her voice tinged with weariness. And we've lost more than we've saved. But I'm not giving up, not until we've shut them down for good. The room fell silent for a moment, the weight of Evelyn's words settling over them like a heavy fog. Nathan glanced at the puppy sitting at her feet, then at the injured pup they had rescued earlier. Both were innocent victims in a much larger battle, one that seemed far from over. What do you need from us? He asked finally, his tone steady but resolute. Evelyn met his gaze, her eyes filled with a mix of gratitude and urgency. I need you to trust me, and to help me. There's a transport coming tonight, not far from here. If we can intercept it, we might be able to rescue the rest of the dogs and gather the evidence we need to bring this operation down. Nathan felt a pang of doubt. This wasn't what he had signed up for. But the determination in Evelyn's voice and the trust in Scout's eyes left him with little choice. As the sun began to set, Evelyn laid out the plan. The transport would be passing through a secluded road about 5 miles from their location. She had intel suggesting that it would be heavily guarded, but she believed they could intercept it with the element of surprise. Jenny looked uneasy. This sounds dangerous. What if they are armed? They probably will be, Evelyn admitted. But we're not going in blind. I've got backup waiting at the rendezvous point, people who've been working with me for years. All I need is your help to get there. Nathan nodded slowly. We'll help. But if this goes south, I'm calling in reinforcements. I'm not risking lives unnecessarily. Fair enough, Evelyn said, extending a hand. Thank you, truly. The drive to the rendezvous point was tense, the atmosphere in the car heavy with anticipation. Scout sat quietly on Jenny's lap, his small frame trembling slightly, as if sensing the gravity of the situation. Nathan kept his eyes on the road, his mind racing with a mix of fear and determination. When they arrived, they were greeted by a small team of individuals, men and women dressed in plain clothes but clearly experienced. Evelyn introduced them quickly, explaining their roles in the operation. Each carried a quiet confidence that reassured Nathan, though the stakes remained high. As they waited for the transport to arrive, Nathan crouched down beside Scout, scratching behind the puppy's ears. You've been through a lot, haven't you, buddy? He murmured. Let's hope this is the last time. Scout wagged his tail faintly, his eyes bright with a mixture of trust and determination. Nathan couldn't help but smile despite the tension in the air. Jenny approached, her voice soft but steady. Whatever happens tonight, we're doing the right thing. Nathan nodded, his gaze fixed on the horizon. Let's just hope it's enough. The clearing where the group waited was bathed in shadows as night fell, the dense forest around them muffling the sounds of the outside world. Nathan leaned against his patrol car, watching the team Evelyn had assembled as they prepared for the interception. They moved with quiet efficiency, checking equipment, sharing brief instructions, and maintaining a tension-filled silence. Despite their calm exteriors, the weight of what they were about to do was palpable. Scout, sensing the shift in atmosphere, stayed close to Jenny, his small body pressed against her leg. She absent-mindedly stroked his fur, her eyes darting between Nathan and Evelyn, who stood at the edge of the clearing, whispering urgently about the plan. "This feels bigger than us," Jenny said softly, breaking the silence. Nathan turned to her, his expression unreadable. "It is," he admitted. "But sometimes we don't get to choose the battles that find us." Jenny nodded, though her brow furrowed with worry. "And what happens if we're wrong? If this goes sideways, we don't know who we're up against." Nathan exhaled deeply, his gaze fixed on the darkened road ahead. "We're not wrong. Look at Scout. Look at that injured puppy we found. Whatever's happening here, it's not right. And if we don't do something, who will?" Evelyn approached them, her face lined with determination. "It's time. The transport will be here in less than 10 minutes. Are you both ready?" "Ready," Nathan nodded, adjusting the flashlight on his belt. Jenny hesitated before responding, her voice quiet but firm. "We're ready." Evelyn gave them a reassuring smile, though it did little to ease the tension. "Remember, we're aiming for minimal confrontation. Our goal is to intercept the transport, document everything, and secure the dogs. No heroics, no unnecessary risks." Nathan's jaw tightened. "Understood. Let's get this done." As they moved into position, Nathan couldn't shake the unease settling in his chest. The forest felt alive with unseen eyes, every rustling leaf and snapping twig amplifying his nerves. Scout, cradled in Jenny's arms, seemed unusually alert, his ears perked and his nose twitching. They crouched behind a cluster of bushes near the road, the headlights of the incoming transport casting long, eerie shadows through the trees. Evelyn signaled for silence, her hand raised as the vehicle approached. The truck was larger than Nathan had expected, its imposing frame rumbling down the dirt road like a beast in the night. As it slowed near the clearing, Evelyn's team sprang into action. 2 members blocked the road with their vehicles, while others emerged from the shadows, flashlights cutting through the darkness. "Stop the truck!" Evelyn shouted, her voice commanding. The driver hesitated, the vehicle lurching to a halt. Nathan and Jenny stayed back, watching as Evelyn approached the cab with her team. The driver, a burly man with a nervous expression, rolled down the window, his hands visibly shaking. "What's this about?" he demanded, his voice gruff but edged with fear. Evelyn flashed a badge, one that Nathan hadn't noticed before. "Wildlife Protection Unit. We have reason to believe this transport is carrying illegal cargo. Step out of the vehicle." The driver hesitated, glancing toward the back of the truck. Nathan's instincts kicked in. Something wasn't right. "I'll check the back," Nathan murmured to Jenny, who nodded, clutching Scout tightly. As Nathan moved toward the rear of the truck, he noticed a faint sound, whimpering. His pulse quickened as he unlatched the doors and swung them open, revealing a heartbreaking scene. Dozens of dogs crammed into cages far too small, stared back at him with wide, frightened eyes. The stench of urine and fear filled the air, and Nathan felt his stomach churn. Some of the dogs were visibly injured, their fur matted with blood and dirt. Jenny gasped, her hand flying to her mouth. "Oh my God!" Scout let out a low whine, squirming in Jenny's arms as if he wanted to leap into the truck and comfort the other dogs. Nathan stepped inside, his flashlight sweeping over the cages. "They're dehydrated," he said grimly. "Some of them might not make it if we don't act fast." Evelyn appeared at his side, her expression a mix of anger and sadness. "We need to get them out of here, now." "What about the driver?" Nathan asked. "He's being detained," she replied. "We'll question him once we secure the dogs." Nathan nodded, moving quickly to unlock the cages. Jenny helped him, her hands trembling as she lifted a small, emaciated puppy from one of the enclosures. The dog whimpered weakly, nuzzling into her chest as if seeking solace. "Shh, it's okay," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "You're safe now." As they worked, Evelyn's radio crackled to life. One of her team members, stationed as a lookout, sounded the alarm. "We've got incoming vehicles, 2 of them. Looks like reinforcements." Evelyn's face hardened. "Everyone, move. Get the dogs into the van." Nathan's heart pounded as the team scrambled to act. The sound of approaching engines grew louder, the forest once again alive with tension. Scout barked sharply, as if warning them of the danger closing in. Jenny handed the puppy she was holding to one of Evelyn's team members, then grabbed Nathan's arm. "What do we do?" Nathan didn't hesitate. "We protect these dogs, no matter what." The first of the incoming vehicles screeched to a halt near the clearing, its headlights cutting through the chaos. Men in dark clothing emerged, their faces obscured by masks. They moved with purpose, their eyes scanning the scene. "Get back!" Evelyn shouted, positioning herself between the men and the truck. "This is a protected operation. You have no authority here." One of the men stepped forward, his voice cold and menacing. "You've made a mistake interfering with us. Stand down, or you'll regret it." Nathan stepped up beside Evelyn, his hand resting on the holster of his weapon. "I don't think so." The clearing was alive with tension as the masked men stood opposite Evelyn's team, their dark silhouettes illuminated by the truck's headlights. "Nathan,